Okay, welcome back to Demon of the Week again, and today we're looking at Ziz, who is one of the third of the primordial beings or chaos monsters within Hebrew texts.
Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button.
Okay, Ziz. This is spelled Z-I-Z, just in case you weren't too sure. And I actually want to mention before we actually get into the rest of it, I don't know if there's any association at all, but if you have a look at the N for Naama, it's ik, ziz, 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 lia, etc., etc. And it kind of reminds me of this name, Ziz. I don't know if there's a relationship there. I can't find one. When I was doing the research for this, it popped into my head and said, just note it down and tell everybody. So that's what I'm telling you. All right, so let's have a look at some correspondences. I actually forgot to mention last week, as you know, Behemoth, you're not going to find an N as you would with the other demons. You don't have to work with an N to invoke spirits. We find it in demonology, we find particular mantras within the Hindu faith, but others, they don't really have them. They have their incantations and their poems and charms and things like that, but in regards to things like ends or mantras, it's not an absolute necessity to use such things in order to invoke the spirits. I think a lot of people who come into demonology and that's the only thing they've been introduced to up to that point, think that if there isn't an end, then you can't do anything, you can't invoke them, can't even work with them. So just wanted to mention that it's not necessary. And with a lot of these demons, there is no end because people have not discovered one or have not been given one by the spirit themselves, because that's how they are received. All right, so some correspondences. Colors: green, pink, purple, gray. Direction: north. It's also mentioned, VK mentions northwest, northeast, and south. North is my own personal, that's where I would place this. Planet gets a bit difficult. I personally place this, or the planetary aspect is lunar, moon. And I'm going to start talking about the actual circle construct at this point because it completes with the next one next week on Sera. If we consider Leviathan, Behemoth, and Ziz to be the axis mundi, the world tree, Lancian sky, okay? If we were to bring that into a circle construct of the cardinal points, then we find Leviathan in the west, we find Behemoth in the south if you work in the northern hemisphere, therefore we would find Ziz in the north. And this places Ziz in the winter solstice and Behemoth in the summer solstice. So therefore Leviathan, and I'm going to get to this next week, you'll understand why, Unsera and Seer then becomes, that's the equal nights, the equinoxes. So spring equinox and autumn equinox. All right, so that gives us the cycle of the seasons, it gives us the cycles of the sun, etc., etc. And when it comes to the element, it gets slightly difficult because Ziz is the being of air. It's the airy space and all flying things. Now, when we think of the airy space, this is where we find the sun. Although physically it is further on, it is beyond the atmosphere, and it is in the sea of space, which we would then relate to Leviathan. But think of it in terms of you look up into the sky, there is this watery covering, which is the atmosphere, which is Leviathan's abyssal space, and then we see the sun. So from that perspective, the sun is in the sky, which is the airy space, which is zizzes, the ziz. That's the space which is related to there. So although we say it's related to the air as an elemental correspondence, we would then probably put it in fire. But if you want to regard this as air in that space of it being in the north, then it becomes the cold area. If we look at traditional witchcraft and the sometimes placement of the elements, we find that fire is in the east because that's where the sun comes up in the morning. It's the red fiery aspect. And then it goes around to earth in the hottest part of the day, and then water, which becomes the west, and then the coldest area, which is behind the earth. When the sun goes behind the earth, that's where we place air. Air is the cold aspect. So, when it comes to the element and such things, you're going to have to consider this from your own personal gnosis of the placement of the elements within the circle, if you want to put this in a circle, that is. And this is just a suggestion. The placement of the elements, what you would consider that airy aspect to be. Do you place that in the element of air, or do you place it in the element of fire? We find this with the Druidic path. We have land, sea, and sky. So we have the material earth, we have the sea, the sky above that, and then we have this covering of the sea of space. But also relates to the bodies of water on the planet itself. But we have this land, sea, and sky aspect. And when it comes to the elemental placement, or the three representations within a nematon or a sacred space, we have land being earth, represented by a tree. We then have water being the sea of space, or the bodies of water on the planet, as a well, because the well contains the water. But then the airy aspect, the sky, where we find the flying things, this is usually represented with a fire pit, because we have the sun in the sky. So anyway, I'm going off on a complete tangent here. Just wanted you to consider, if you wanted to actually work with these spirits in a circle construct and place them in the cardinal points, there's some things to consider. Personally, I would place Ziz in the north if you're in the northern hemisphere, and the element of air, which is the cold aspect. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, obviously switch that over to the position of the south, which is then the coldest aspect, because that's the sun then comes up in the east, goes to the north, goes down in the west, and hides behind the earth in the south. So, hemispheres also. Anyway, so let's get on to the notes. I should get through these quite quickly. There's not as much as the other ones. So in Jewish mythology, the Ziz is a giant griffin-like bird, said to be large enough to block out the sun with its wingspan. Compared with the Persian Semiurge, I think it was Semiurge or Semiurge, Simurge, can't remember how you pronounce that now, sorry about that. The Sumerian Anzu and the ancient Greek Phoenix rules the sky, the airy space between the earth of Behemoth and the abyssal space of Leviathan, therefore rules over the birds and all flying things. In the Jewish Agadot, it is mentioned that his wings are so large that unfurled they darken the sun. They protect the earth against the storms of the south. Without their aid, the earth would not be able to resist the winds blowing thence, or hence. He is also called Renanin, because he is a celestial singer, and also Sekwi, the seer. All right. I do find it interesting. We kind of, I think it's probably mostly from a Christian perspective, is we talk about Leviathan, we talk about Behemoth, and we talk about, don't really get mention of Ziz, but, these are the three primordial beings. And they're always considered to be evil. and bad, and they must be killed and banished and removed and everything else. And I think if it's just because of ignorance, but probably is. But when you actually read the Hebrew texts and the mythology behind it and things like that, there's a lot of symbolism, obviously. But, we look at Leviathan as being the protective aspect, encapsulating the material world, as that guardian, and also the eating of the flesh of Leviathan and Behemoth as being a symbolism for enlightenment. Behemoth being the fertility aspect, and we need fertility in order to bring life. Life doesn't continue unless we have sex, and we produce offspring. And then we have Ziz, who is this giant bird that can block out the sun and cause an eclipse throughout the entire world in an instant, yet it also has that protective aspect. If we didn't have those wings, we would be blown away, type of thing. So, I know we get this Christian view of these spirits as being evil and such things, but you really have to consider things from a different perspective, because that's a load of bullshit. Anyway, so VK's take on this, Lot being his own personal gnosis. I'm just going to list it. It's just basically a list of things. There's a lot of them. Baneful magic specializing in binding spells, lethal execrations, and vampiric sorcery can help to integrate one's shadow and commune with higher self. In divination, specifically in regards to tarot and bones, presides over necromancy, nature magic, psychic vampirism, the creation of egregores, sea magic, glamour spells, wind control, sanguine vampirism, shape-shifting in dreams and astral projection, lunar magic, Vodun, and the ways of Norse runes in sorcery. Okay. I don't know how Vodun or the Norse aspects got related there. This is primarily a Jewish or mythology from Jewish texts. Greatly knowledgeable regarding the Eleusinian mysteries, can cure addiction, remove or diminish insecurities, and fix digestive problems. Now remember, this is a primordial being, kind of like the Greek Titans that created the entire cosmos and things like that. So they can help you with your digestive problems, can increase social skills and make one a better writer, can teach how to read people and seduce them and make you a better liar. Okay. Can impart courage, creativity, and femininity to people. Greatly knowledgeable regarding automobile mechanics, welding, and quantum mechanics. Can be called upon in spell work to bring about healing, fidelity, love, and luck. Help in remembering dreams and lucid dreaming. Right, so that's Jehannam's take on Ziz. As per usual, there are some interesting stuff in there, but I would definitely take a lot of it with a grain of salt. Okay. Alright. So that's Ziz, and we're going to complete the 4 I consider to be the 4 in this regard next week. So have a good one. Cheers for now. Bye bye.